We begin with new allegations in a Minnesota voter fraud case that first came to light this summer. Two people pleaded guilty in federal court to being paid to help register voters. In all, 500 to 600 fraudulent voter registration applications were submitted to election officials in offices in 13 Minnesota counties.
You know, for years, President Trump has been warning America about voter fraud, and the media laughed. They mocked him. They called it a conspiracy. But now, Minnesota just proved him right. Over 500 fraudulent voter registrations uncovered across 13 counties. And the shocking part, the people behind it were reportedly funded by taxpayer dollars. You can't make this up. And guess whose name keeps circling around this scandal? Ilhan Omar. Yeah, the same Ilhan Omar who's been knee-deep in controversies for years. Before I break it all down, make sure you smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications.
Esme Murphy has been following this case, and she joins us now. Esme?
Hi there, Frank. It was some sharp election workers in Carver County who realized the names and addresses on the voter registration forms did not match with any county residents. Prosecutors charged two people with one count each of voter registration fraud. According to the charging documents, the two were paid by an unnamed foundation to help register voters. The two defendants pled guilty this summer and have since moved out of state. The scope of the 2-year FBI and state investigation was not previously known.
And it's very significant that they said today it was 13 counties, between 500 and 600 fake voter registrations. And that's just from two of the independent contractors that worked with this group.
The investigation involves scouring hundreds of records.
On guidance from the FBI, the voter registration applications were mailed directly to the election lead, and instructions were shared to use gloves when handling the forms.
In testimony before the committee, Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon says the system designed to catch voter fraud worked.
This is a case about individuals who conspired to submit false voter registration applications. This is not a case about fraudulent votes. And this is ultimately a case of the system working.
How many were in the system is challenged.
Republican Committee Chair Kristen Robbins, who is running for governor, says she has additional concerns that the unnamed foundation that paid the two workers is funded by state taxpayer dollars.
99% of their budget comes from state grants. So this is a group that the state is funding and that then went out and did these voter registrations.
Now, the hearing left a lot of people, including us, with a lot of questions that were not answered. One of the big ones, the 12 other counties where the fraud was discovered are not being.
Today met to talk about how to prevent voter registration fraud.
It follows a case where a Nevada couple pleaded guilty to filling out hundreds of fraudulent voter registration applications in 13 Minnesota counties. Richard Reeve was at the House Fraud Prevention Committee hearing.
Well, more ideas than answers from this particular committee. You know, this began many, many months ago when local elections officials noticed some inconsistencies in some of these applications. The Secretary of State's office, the FBI, and those local elections officials began investigating to find out what was happening. The House committee had some pointed questions about the case. Federal court documents filed in June say Ronnie Williams and Lorraine Lee Combs filled out voter registration forms with fake names, addresses, date of birth, and Social Security numbers, and that an unnamed foundation paid for them.
There doesn't seem to be a check when this group submitted the fraudulent applications. So I don't know where that breakdown comes in.
The motive? Money. Prosecutors say the foundation paid Williams for each completed application. State lawmakers passed a law in 2023 banning that practice.
This is not a case about fraudulent votes. And this is ultimately a case of the system working to detect these applications so they could be appropriately challenged and referred to law enforcement for prosecution and conviction.
But we wondered, what about now? DFL and GOP members of the committee disagree.
Any new evidence of fraud at this point that you guys have been able to find?
You know, we have not seen it, but I'm very concerned that the foundation in question gets their entire budget from state and federal grants. That to me is of concern, and that's something that I hope to talk to the Department of Health about and other departments that are their grantors.
Is there any new evidence of fraud, new cases at all that you all have found?
I mean, in this committee? Well, I will say the press, we've had a couple folks come in that the press had identified, and nothing through this committee process at all.
Now, Kristen Robbins, the chair of that committee, says she still sees some red flags out here. She would like the Secretary of State's office to do more vetting before those applications are passed on to those local county elections offices. From the state capitol.
So, here's what went down. 2 individuals pleaded guilty to voter registration fraud, fake names, fake addresses, fake social security numbers, all of it. And they didn't do it alone. They were reportedly paid by an unnamed foundation to flood Minnesota's election offices with hundreds of fake applications, over 500 forms across 13 counties, and only Carver County has been publicly named so far. Now tell me why the other 12 counties are being kept secret. That's not transparency. That's a cover-up. Let's talk about that foundation. Lawmakers say 99% of its budget came from state taxpayer grants. So yes, you funded it. The people of Minnesota funded the very group that carried out a voter registration scam. And here's where it gets interesting. Multiple reports suggest that this foundation has ties to Democrat organizers operating within Ilhan Omar's network. Nothing confirmed yet, but the smell of corruption is all over this. While regular Americans struggle to pay their bills, Democrat-backed groups are using public money to mess with your elections. If that doesn't make your blood boil, it should. Now, let's be real. Ilhan Omar's name always seems to pop up whenever there's fraud, scandal, or corruption in Minnesota. She's been accused of campaign finance violations, immigration fraud, and now this. Even the FBI is reportedly looking into aspects of this operation. If this foundation connects back to her or her circle, that's game over. She should be removed from Congress immediately, because if a sitting member of Congress is tied to a fraud network, that's not just unethical, that's treason against the American voter. Guys, if you're fed up with this kind of corruption, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're not letting stories like this die in silence. When President Trump said the 2020 election was full of irregularities, the left said, no evidence. Well, here it is. This is proof that our election system has been compromised, and that Trump's calls for voter ID laws, same-day voting, and paper ballots weren't paranoia, they were common sense. Trump wanted to protect the integrity of every American's vote. Democrats called it voter suppression. But now we see exactly why they fought so hard against those reforms, because tight rules make fraud harder. And that's bad news for people like Ilhan Omar. Minnesota's voter fraud scandal isn't just another headline. It's a wake-up call. It proves that Trump was right about the system being broken, and that it's up to us, the people, to demand accountability. Ilhan Omar and her political machine may try to dodge the truth, but it's catching up fast. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Ilhan Omar should be investigated further? And before you go, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it everywhere, because the mainstream media sure won't. I'm telling you folks, this is just the beginning.